So just to start off, because I talk so much about mindset and, mental strength and those things, I just want to get your thoughts on it to begin with. Talk about mindset, mental strength, and not only the need for it, but how does someone go about increasing their mental strength and their mindset and creating a powerful mindset?
That's a fantastic question. And I think the one thing that I've realized is both of those are just like a muscle. And what I mean by that is you can strengthen them, you can elongate them, you can stretch them. And I think it's something that people don't understand in regards to the value of putting time and effort into your mindset and your mental perspective, how you approach things, how you prepare for things. And I think the one thing I've realized over the last few years, just with my podcast as well as my company, is so many people spend so much time and effort really trying to improve themselves, their mental strength, their mental capacity, but more so how they go about doing things from a mental perspective, whether it's preparing for a sales meeting, whether it's preparing for a game, whether it's preparing for an opponent, or whether it's just preparing for your day. And I think the value of that, especially during this pandemic, people underestimate the advantage you give yourself if you really put time and effort into it. And my analogy of a muscle is something that I think people don't realize. They say, well, I'm not really that mentally strong, or, I don't really understand it. And I always flip the script and say, well, what about if you took 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day to really try to just make little improvements? And when you break things down, I think, into bite-sized pieces, you reverse engineer something. That's when people all of a sudden adapt to it differently and say, well, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I think if we could all kind of flip the script on it a little bit, I think we'd all realize that it's a muscle that we all can strengthen and improve if we focus on it.
I completely agree with you. And it's like any muscle. If you just ignore it, it's going to atrophy. And, when you put some focus into it, you can do some amazing things there. Now, one thing that you and I have talked a lot about is the concept of proximity is power. And, the Jim Rohn quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So talk to me about that, and then tell me, dead or alive, who would sit at your table?
Yeah, I think as we have spoken about that concept and idea quite a bit. And I think we've all heard, seen that quote. We've all seen countless memes or social media posts in some way, shape, or form about that. But take it a step further, and I know you've heard this analogy as well, is if you hang around with 5 millionaires, the thought process is you're going to be the 6th millionaire. If you hang around with 5 people that are out of shape, you're going to be the 6th person that's out of shape. The other idea that I don't think people understand enough is the concept of leveling up. And what I mean by that is if you're looking to improve or increase an area in your life, whether that's personal or professional, you need to get outside of your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is if you're hanging around people that are at your job and doing a good job with it, and you want to go somewhere else or do something differently, you need to spend some time and effort with some of those people that are doing those things that you want to do or trying those things that you want to do. And I think in today's day and age, we don't focus on the importance of who we surround ourselves with. And the other perspective that I really have become fascinated with is the idea of mentors. And I think it goes hand in hand with that quote, in the sense that if we were to go back 5, 10, 15 years ago, if there was somebody we wanted to connect with, we would have to go to an actual library or go to a bookstore and see if they had a book. And if not, you could order it, or go online and see if somebody was going to be doing a seminar and say, okay, they'll be here in 7 months. Okay, I'm going to buy a ticket. In today's day and age with technology, you can have so many people mentor you, and they can even be dead or alive. But whether it's videos, courses, podcasts, YouTube channels, online courses, certain books, ebooks, audiobooks, there's never been a more opportune time to take advantage of really surrounding yourself. So when I hear people that kind of push back on that concept and say, well, I live in this place and there's not a lot going on, I always say, okay, well, is there an internet? Do you have a phone? Do you have a laptop? And I say, okay, do you have audiobooks? Yes. Podcasts are free. Oh yeah. So there's always the opportunity. The question is do you want to level up? And I think in today's day and age, there's such a huge opportunity to get such a wide range of information, and you can have people that mentor you that you maybe will never know, that never get a chance to meet in person. As I said, I've had a tremendous amount of people that have mentored me. One of them being Jim Rohn. He's been dead for quite a few years now. Never got a chance to see him or meet him live, but he's mentored me, and he's had such a positive impact in my life. To answer your second question that I asked,
and before you go there, let me put in a little bit that I stole this question from a previous podcast, which was yours. So this was a question that you had asked me, and so I'm just throwing it back at you.
What is it? Flattery is the best form of, or what is the quote?
Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna preface my answer real quick. I also stole that question from somebody else. I tweaked it a little bit, but it wasn't asked with the Jim Rohn quote. I added that piece to it. But the question I asked Jeff on my show is, if I could put you at a table with any 5 people, dead or alive, and you could learn or level up from them, who would it be and why? So my 5: Abraham Lincoln, Michael Jordan, Elon Musk, I believe Oprah Winfrey, a mix between Andre Agassi or Rafael Nadal. Is that 5 or 4? 5. And I got asked this before. The female would be did I say Oprah Winfrey yet?
You said Oprah. Yeah.
All right, so Mike Jordan, Lincoln, Winston Churchill, excuse me.
Awesome. And what's the relationship with Winston Churchill in your podcast?
Winston Churchill is my great grandfather. No.
I was like, really?
I had you for a second. I saw. If you guys couldn't see this, is this audio or video?
It's both.
Oh, nice. You were looking like, really? No. Winston Churchill he's just a fascinating guy. And if you've done some research on the odds that he overcame to do what he did in different places in his life, he's an incredible person. And for me, I think I would love to not say anything at a dinner. I mean, I talk a lot. You ask my friends and my parents, I'm always talking nonstop, but I think that's one time in my life that I would just want to shut up and listen the entire time.
And, just because we're talking about it, just share the name of your podcast as well so people can find that.
I appreciate that. It's called No Quit Living, and you can get it anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Okay. And I believe, was it on your website that I actually saw under one of your things, one of the Winston Churchill quotes? Was that right?
Yep. I have
never give up.
He's and if you can't see it, but the wall behind me to my left, I have 3 of those plaques with never give up. And I think it's just something that we need more so today than ever.
Exactly. So let's stay on that topic of mentorship for a minute. Because I agree. You do not have to have someone that's sitting right with you be your mentor. I've always looked at Napoleon Hill as one of my mentors. I want to hear how Michael Jordan's been your mentor, just because we both love talking about him.
He's also my grandfather as well. I have a very famous family. It's Winston Churchill on one side of the family and Michael Jordan. How I got the 5'11" white genes of not being able to jump or play in the NBA, that I stole that from Winston's.
That's Churchill.
No, we had a really fascinating conversation about Michael Jordan and basketball, but the one commercial that has stood out, I believe, so many fans of basketball, Michael Jordan, whether you're not a fan of Michael Jordan, but it's the commercial where he talks about how many shots he took and how many shots he missed, how many times he had a chance to win the game at the buzzer and he missed. And then the bottom of that commercial, right on the bottom at the end of it, he talks about, and that's why I am who I am today, or that's why I become the champion I am. And I think Michael Jordan is somebody that got cut by his varsity basketball team in high school. He was not a top recruited high school basketball player out of the state of North Carolina. He was obviously recruited, but not to the level of who he would become. He was drafted 3rd, not even number 1 in his class. The trivia question, and I have to ask you, do you know who the number 1 and number 2 draft picks that year were?
I did. Was it Ewing?
Nope.
No? No, I don't.
Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie.
Okay, I should have known Hakeem. I didn't know
Yeah,
Sam.
Sam Bowie was a big man out of Kentucky that got drafted before Jordan. No, it was either, I think it might have been Clyde Drexler. I might take that back, but it's either Hakeem and Sam Bowie or Clyde Drexler and Sam Bowie. So that's negative 1 point for me. But you fast forward his first couple years in the league, he was an unbelievable scorer, but his team was terrible. They always finished middle to the lower part of the Eastern Conference, and it wasn't until 1988, 1989, 1990 when he really took the Bulls to the level. But the thing that people don't understand about Jordan is it wasn't until he got some of those teammates, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, that really took his team to the next level. And one thing that Jordan talks about, and I give him credit for that, is if it wasn't for those teammates, the Bulls wouldn't have had that level of success. Yes, he was a huge part of that, and the chance of without him or his teammates, obviously they had a better chance because of him. But it wasn't until he really relied on his team, and it just says a lot about him. And I've read a bunch of things about Michael Jordan, but the one thing that I absolutely fell in love with is Michael Jordan, similar to Rafael Nadal and Kobe Bryant, only had one level of playing. And I'm not talking about, never lose. And I'm talking about, he always spoke about, he never knew if a child was going to come see him play. And that was the only time they'll ever get a chance to see him play. He said, I don't know if, mother and father, save up tickets for weeks or months on end. And he said, I always wanted to give my best effort every time I stepped on the court. And that hit me because he didn't talk about perfection. He didn't talk about never missing a shot. He didn't talk about being the greatest. He always spoke about giving his best effort each and every day. And I think that's something that we can all emulate. And I think it's something that we miss the boat on, because if you give your best effort, then you should be able to put your head on the pillow and know that you gave your best effort. It doesn't mean if you lose that you're happy and you jump up and down and celebrate. But if you really and truly can put your head down on the pillow at night and say, you know what, I really left everything out on the court or in that business meeting or with my spouse or kids, and it wasn't the outcome I desired, but I can put my head on the pillow tonight and know that I really left it all out there.
That's awesome. And that's why someone like that can be a mentor, because like you say, that doesn't have to be on the court. That can be in the boardroom. That can be the sales meeting, whatever. So yeah. Thank you for that. Talk about what your thoughts are around how do you create confidence?
Confidence is one of those things that I think is often overlooked about the importance. And I think it's also misinterpreted in the sense that you can't have it magically happen overnight, but you can have an impact on it every single day. And I think something that I talk about often is small wins lead to huge victories. And I know it sounds very cliche, but it's the same thing with confidence. It's hitting your first shot in a basketball game. Your confidence grows. And you being a basketball guy yourself, you know that. If you make a sale in a business perspective, your confidence grows. But the flip side of it is if you miss one or two sales in a row, your confidence goes down. If you miss your first two shots or your first three shots, if you're a baseball player and you strike out your first at-bat in a game, your confidence diminishes. But you can increase it with little wins along the way. So let's say your next at-bat in a baseball game, you don't get a hit, but you foul off 2 or 3 or 4 pitches, or you crush the ball, but it goes right to, the third baseman and you get out. The confidence was, okay, I struck out the first time. Now I saw the ball a little bit better in the next at bat and I hit it really hard. Unfortunately, it was just right to where a defender was. But the same thing with sales, and the same thing in life, whether it's relationships, whether it's your mental perspective is putting your eyes in front of a book. It's not going to automatically, boom, now I know everything about that subject, or now my confidence is a level 10. But what are those little things you can control? I can approach this meeting better. I can recap this missed sales opportunity. So yes, I didn't get it, but my confidence is a little bit higher because now I looked at maybe 1 or 2 areas I could have improved on, or 1 or 2 things. If I'm in a similar situation, I'm gonna follow that, and I'm gonna follow that realm down in the future. But I think it's also the idea that being confident is very different than being cocky. And I think a lot of people, confuse the two of them. And I think confidence is something that you instill in yourself through the proper maintenance along the way. If you're reading the right books, if you're preparing, if you're going to bed on time, in a sports position or a sports field, it's eating the right foods, getting the proper rest, working out in the gym. And I think if we all looked at it and reverse engineered into those little things we could do on a daily basis, I talk often about 1% better. If you make that 1% improvement, fast forward a month, 2 months, 3 months, it's going to be 10, 15, 20, percentage points or improvements, but it's only done with one here, one there. And if you compound that, your confidence should increase because you put in the effort.
Absolutely. And I actually had a incredible conversation yesterday with Tyson Durfee, who's a world champion calf roper. And he talked about that, the practice and the things he did. And he always was looking to do that better every day. And his confidence grew just from the fact that he says, I know no one's done what I've done. I know no one's put in the work, and, I'm not going to be perfect every time, but I know that I deserve this because I've put in the grind.
You touched on something, just to interject for a second, is talking about giving yourself an advantage. And we talk often about the positive mental advantage, the PMA. But the one thing, going back to controlling the controllables, I talk about often with sports teams or salespeople is that effort and that hard work. And what I mean by that is I can't control what Jeff does this morning. I can't control whether Jeff's going to go to the gym, whether he's going to go to the gym for 20 minutes or for 2 hours. And even if you're there for 2 hours, I can't control if you're going to maximize and absolutely put in 2 hours of work or not. But what I can control is I can control my effort I put in. I can control my hard work. And I know that if you put in that hard work, that you are giving yourself an advantage because you're doing it each and every day. And talk about champions in all different levels. They've put in that consistent effort weeks on end. And it's not one day, it's not one good week. It's first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day. And it's those little things that just lead to huge differences over time.
Yeah, excellent. So you kind of touched on it with how you build confidence when things are going wrong and whatnot, but talk more about the whole idea of failure, because failure, we hear it. Failure is the road to success. We hear all these things, but that's easy to talk about till you're actually failing. Failing's hard.
It's so funny you preface that question. I have literally had this conversation probably 20 times in the last month or two. And to your point, you're spot on. It's easy to talk about. You and I could sit here and say, oh, failure, you learn so much more during failure, and failure is the best thing that's ever happened. And then all of a sudden you and I are in the same basketball team and we lose. We're not high-fiving each other on the way back to the locker room saying like, oh no, but Jeff, we're going to learn so much. We failed, but this is going to be awesome. You're being quiet in the car. I'm quiet in the car. And maybe we don't even say anything. And we get out and say, oh, I'll see you later. And, we go our separate ways. But what I found about failure is the most successful people in all walks of life, Michael Jordan included, back to that story I shared about the commercial, have failed more often than other people. The question is, what do you do during those failures? So Super Bowl is coming up, and Tom Brady is appearing in his 10th Super Bowl. The thing that people don't realize is Tom Brady is not 10-0 in the Super Bowls. Tom Brady has not played 200, 300 football games, and he's 200-0. He's lost many games. Tom Brady tore his ACL and his MCL, I believe, in the first or second game of the season and missed an entire year. But what happened was he learned during those failures. When they lost 2 Super Bowls to my New York Giants, he learned during those losses. He learned how to mentally put himself in that perspective again. And if a season, 2 seasons from now, he encounters some of those situations, he was ready. But I think most people have to be willing to acknowledge and accept their failures, but then you have to move forward and take action. And to your point, it's so easy to talk about it, but the hard part is saying, okay, how are we going to learn, or how are we going to move on from this? And I think, unfortunately, oftentimes people just go from failure to failure without really analyzing it. And I'm not saying you have to spend, months on months, but if you just go from failure to failure, sometimes you'll miss some of the most important lessons. So it's not only going from failure to failure, but like I've said a couple times, is looking at those potential reoccurrences. Okay, now I understand this. So if the sales potential opportunity comes about, maybe I'll handle it a little different. If we're down by 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, here's a strategy we can use. And I think that's something that, if I could go back to the 20-year-old version myself, I would probably give myself the advice of just spend a little bit more time analyzing some of those failures or those losses. So if and when they come, or something similar comes, you'll be better prepared.
Excellent. And so tying in with the title of your podcast, as you're talking about that, to me, it's like, okay, if you don't learn from it and you just go from failure to failure, you're quitting. And, if you've got that no quit attitude, then doesn't mean you're not going to fail. It just means you can use that and learn from it.
Yeah. And one of the words that I've been focusing a lot, not only myself, but with my clients, is the word consistency. And what I've really been focusing on is eliminating that idea of perfection and taking that concept of always winning and always being the best, and instead replacing the word consistency. And if you lose, but you learn, there are so many people that say sometimes it's better off than if you win, because when you win, a lot of the times you don't analyze it. And the other perspective, especially from sports, is when you're winning, you're not spending a lot of time really going through it. You're just going through the motions and says, all right, we got a 2-game winning streak, a 3-game winning streak. Not that you don't care, not that you don't prepare, but you're not really focusing on the past 2 or 3 games because things are going well and you're kind of in that state of flow. But the flip side is, when you're losing, do you have that ability to internalize some of that and say, okay, how do we really learn from this? And what could we do differently? And the thing that I say often is, success leaves clues, but so does failures. Momentum goes both ways. If you've lost 4 games in a row, think about why the reason is. Have you done a couple of things the same way? Are you repeating certain things? And if so, if you lost 4 games in a row, maybe you tweak some of them. The flip side, with positive momentum, you've won 3 or 4 games in a row. You want to analyze and say, okay, we're playing well. What are those 1 or 2 things that we've really done well, so we can duplicate them or replicate them moving forward? And I think, again, going back to that, success leaves clues, but so does failures. And I think oftentimes we don't probably think about that enough.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. All right. What I want you to do is share where our listeners can find you, and share again about your podcast, social media, everything, website.
I appreciate that. So the podcast is titled No Quit Living. You can find that, as I said, anywhere you listen to podcasts. The website is noquitliving.com. We're most active on Instagram. It's no_quit_living. And I give out my personal email address all the time. I love connecting with people. That's how you and I connected, from a common friend we have. And it's chris@noquitliving.com. And I just love connecting with people, because what I've realized is that we all have our no quit story, and we've all gotten knocked down. And I want to learn from people, and I want to connect with people, how they got up, why they got up, but what led them to come back as a better, stronger, or more intellectual version of themselves.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everything you've shared, and I know my listeners are going to appreciate it, and they can reach out to you and go from there. But thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you again.